name is Joshua Calhoun. I'm the city's finance director. This evening, we'll be going over a workshop for proposed changes to the lighting district that is currently formed. But we're making changes, adding landscaping and general updates to that particular district that we will go over in detail. And also, we're going to see how these changes will affect your specific properties. So the purpose of today's meeting will be examining the existing assessment district and what the new proposed district and assessments will look like. We'd also learn how the funded and proposed landscaping districts, so how those changes will look. This is relating to taxes, so it does have to follow a legal process. So we'll be discussing how the noticing and balloting has to work to follow the law. And then we'll be going over the actual proposed new rates that would appear on the 2025-2026 tax rolls if approved during this process. So facilitating this process is multiple departments. I manage the city's and district's financial operations. So I'll be conducting oversight over the process. Our Public Works Department, Raul Diaz, who will be joining us shortly, their purpose is to do the operations and maintenance of the district streetlights, medians, so on and so forth. And to guide us through this complex process, to make sure it follows the legal process and the engineering report, we do have Stacy Reynolds and Joan Reynolds from Wildan Financial Services that will be here to kind of go over the specific details of the engineering report and the proposed assessments.
Thank you, Joshua. So your current street lighting assessment, it funds maintenance and servicing of the arterial streetlights and traffic signals throughout the city of Cudahy. The assessment rates have remained unchanged since Prop 218 was passed in November of 1996. And at present, the funds collected are no longer sufficient to cover the rising maintenance and electricity costs. The city of Cudahy is currently subsidizing the budget, which is negatively impacting their ability to provide other services. So the proposed new district will provide comprehensive landscaping and lighting maintenance to the city. It's an expanded scope of services that will include traffic lights, street lights, and landscaping, and the revenues will be sufficient to cover expenses. So the new district will replace the existing and provide funding for the expanded scope. The assessments will appear on the 25-26 property tax bills if approved. The assessment revenue generated by the new district is tracked in a separate fund that will only be used to pay for the district improvements. So this slide lists all of the district improvement assets. There's 241 streetlights throughout the city of Cudahy. It will fund 14 traffic signals and 115,000 square feet of median and right-of-way landscaping. These infrastructure assessments require regular maintenance, electricity, water, and servicing to function properly. The Prop 218 process is what we are currently going through right now. So initially, we identified all the benefiting parcels that receive special benefit from these district improvements. We calculated the proportionate benefit. So each parcel's benefit is determined through a detailed engineer's report. And then there's a mandatory 45-day notice, and the notice and ballots were mailed to all affected property owners. And so now that you have your ballot, you get to vote yes or no and return the ballot by April 15th, 2025. The return ballots are weighted by assessment amount. A majority protest, 50% plus one, will cease the formation of the new expanded district, and the existing underfunded district will remain in place. This slide shows the proposed assessment rates. As stated before, the landscaping and the traffic signals are new to the district, so that's why the current rate is NA. And then there's the increased assessment for the zone lighting in zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Zone 1 is residential. Zones 2 and 3 are commercial. And then off to the side is what your property is an example of what your property tax bill looks like in the county of LA. So the rates are structured by benefit zones and land use type. And the new district, as I said, adds landscaping and traffic signal components to the assessment. This assessment will also include future rate adjustments. There will be an annual CPI adjustment. The maximum assessment rate will increase annually based on the consumer price index for Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim area. The maximum increase cap, so the annual max rate cannot exceed 5%, protecting property owners from significant jumps. The actual assessment rate may be less than the annual maximum rate if district expenses are less than the allowed maximum that can be collected. This inflation adjustment ensures long-term financial sustainability while protecting property owners from excessive increases.
So kind of leading us off throughout this discussion is we're here to answer your questions and provide those responses. We have Wildan Financial staff here to discuss any technical details or any kind of budget details, so walking you through how we kind of came up with some of those assessments. And so next steps from here is as you kind of gain this information, absorb it, think about it. You have your ballot. You can either vote yes, that will provide that if a majority of the community says yes to this measure, it will increase the rates. But what you get out of this is sustainability to be able to afford to continue funding the medians, the street lights, because we've done a lot of work to get those into their proper condition. We want to continue to maintain those and have that fund be solvent in the long term. This also helps the general fund that it has been subsidizing the current district over the past several years, being able to continue to provide other services to the community without having to float over to these particular services. So the intent of these assessments is to, from back when it was first formed, was to fund lighting and the lighting. Like we said earlier, that has not been changed since 1992. As we all know, electricity costs and maintenance costs has gone up quite significantly since that time. Right now, we want to catch that up, and so that the general fund could be able to not have to subsidize that going forward. With that, I will leave it open to questions. If you have questions here in the audience, raise your hand. For those on Zoom, please use the hand raise feature or the question chat feature, and we will call your name once we get to those. Any questions? Thank you very much for the question. The district was originally formed, as we mentioned earlier, to uh, initially fund the electricity costs for those streetlights back in 1992. Those expenses have risen. So how it works is those tax assessments, you pay your property taxes, those go into a special fund that can only be used to fund those electricity costs. Those costs have obviously gone up. So let's say we'll use nice round numbers. We bring in $100,000 in assessments, but it cost us $200,000 to maintain those streetlights. So that difference of $100,000 comes from the city's general fund. That general fund comes from property taxes, sales taxes, and whatnot. Those are primarily attributed to other services throughout the city, such as park activities, public safety, parking services, and whatnot. The parking is on a separate issue. Those parking fees that you pay fund parking enforcement so that we can ensure that there's as many parking spots as we can maintain available, make sure that the appropriate individuals are permitted in parking areas. The essentially we're trying to catch up this particular assessment so that that $100,000 that the general fund has been having to subsidize this over time can continue to provide public safety and other services to the community. Otherwise, those would have to be adjusted over time.
So on the notice that we received, it says that there's no sunset period. Just to be clear, that means that this tax will continue forever until it's decided to be changed, correct? Also, it says that it's going to be, it's starting with the amount that's listed on this notice, but that there will be an increase every year after that. So that means for the rest of the time that we own our properties here, there's going to be an increase, correct? That we will have no say and no way to stop this from increasing every year. So, which brings me to my next question, because on my property, I have a duplex. And the city currently has rent control, and there's only so much that we as owners are allowed to increase the rent, which I believe is 3% a year. And so this is going to be a yearly increase of 5% on top of whatever is being added now. But then we also have the increases on our trash collection that we go through every year, the water, the electric, and the repairs that we also have to make. So how is this going to be sustainable for us as property owners when we're limited to 3% unless we go through a process that we have to file paperwork to be approved an additional percentage?
Thank you for the question. So to answer your first question, yes, it does not have a sunset period. The reason being is because those assets, the medians, the streetlights are always going to exist in perpetuity, so that we want to continue funding those for that level of time. The second part of the question is why the annual increase is because, like you, we are a Southern California Edison customer. Our electricity costs, based on usage, goes up just like your electricity costs at home. So the idea of the CPI is to keep up with those costs. But this time we made sure that it's capped at 5%. So if electricity cost jumps 10%, well, it only goes up 5 and it's capped there. The third part of your question is we hope that the costs of these do not go up more than 3% per year, depending on the utility rates and the cost of maintaining the lights. But you can follow the rent control measures process to apply that to your tenants in your particular circumstance.
Okay, so because of the rent control situation that the city has, we're only capped at 3%. So all the increases that we have to go through, because some of these we have no say on it, they happen at different times. So that just takes time from us having to come into City Hall when we already have a full-time job to be at, and then have to take time off to come and file the paperwork every single time. So it's just doesn't seem like it's feasible for us as property owners when we have a rental unit on our property. Because the trash collection, like I mentioned, takes place, I think, in July, and then we have another increase in with the water company, which, just like we don't have control over that. We have no say on those. But to have to be coming into City Hall several times throughout the year whenever we have an increase, it's just, it just takes too much time. So is there any way that the city can look back at that rent control measure and be like more willing to work with property owners on the 3% increase? Because like you said, you're hoping it's under 5%, but what if it isn't? And we have no control over that. So that's my main concern. Another concern is the notice was mailed out only in English. And as you're aware, most of the people that live here in Cudahy are Spanish speaking. So I think that should also have been considered because, we're not used to receiving these notices where we as property owners have to actually or have the right to be able to vote on these measures. So, because like I almost threw it away myself, but I opened it because I saw that it said ballot. Whereas other people that are Spanish speaking may not have opened it. So now how are you going to make sure that those property owners are made aware of this?
So the first part of your question in regards to the rent control, rent stabilization ordinance, we definitely these workshops and whatnot are reviewed by staff, and we do have a council member present here. We do take community feedback. That's why we do these workshops, not just on this one particular topic, but all particular topics. We want to we will take that feedback when it comes to the rent stabilization ordinance, and as we do a look back on that process, which happens every few years, we will definitely take that into account because that's something that we have heard because inflation and other things have crept up beyond that 3%. So that's something we can take into account as we do a look back review process of rent stabilization. The second part of your question in regards to the noticing, to control the cost, because this has become a city cost, is we wanted to maintain English, but we do have copies of all the notices and the ballots and information available at City Hall, and Spanish-speaking staff that could be able to answer any questions that come from there. So if there was anybody that was unsure about these, I have received several calls regarding these. And we have anybody that stops by City Hall to ask questions about this and wants it in Spanish is made fully available there.
I just wanted a little bit more clarification about the cost of what the property tax would look like. My parents, they're not landlords. They're elderly folk, they only have a certain type of income. So we don't have the luxury of having like an additional income coming from tenants or renting properties. So is that is the property tax going to be fixed on something, or is it going to be the same for all property owners in the city of Cudahy? how does that look like? And just like the impact for those folks that, you know, don't have that extra income coming in.
Good evening, I'm Stacy Reynolds from William Financial Services. As far as the rates for residential, do you have a copy of the engineer's report? If you look on page 17, there's a maximum assessment rate table there. So for residential properties, you'll see under landscaping. For landscaping, your parents would pay $19.81 a year. And then depending on their front footage, they would fall into lighting zone 1. They'll pay 41 cents per front foot. So if their front foot is 50, just times that by 41 to get that amount. And then for traffic lights, there's a flat fee for them for that. And that would be $9.65. So if you add all those totals together, probably less than about $50 or so that they would pay annually. You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Lilian. Ya que la señora hizo una pregunta acerca por ejemplo, que cómo o cuánta cantidad de los residentes han recibido la nota o cómo es que se van a asegurar que todos han votado o que van a ir, como hacen en cualquier lado, casa por casa, usted recibió esta nota diciendo ya votó. O van a mandar otra segunda nota, otra tercera nota diciendo no hemos recibido su voto, no ha llegado, para asegurarse que la persona ya haya votado.
So how the process works is for every ballot that is received, let's say we receive 100 ballots. We have sent out approximately 3,000 based on number available parcels without the city. But this process is based on the amount of returned ballots. So of the returned ones, let's say it's 100. If 51 say yes, the ballot measure will move through for all residences. If 51 or more say no, it fails and everything will remain status quo.
Yo vivo en condominio. Todos los condominios somos 12 unidades. ¿Tenemos que pagar esa cantidad o nomás es una por el, como dice usted, por el frente de lo de la casa? Pues cada uno va a pagar.
It's generally based by parcel number. So if the parcel number has 12 units, then they're charged by those 12 units. So it's that amount times 12. If it's one parcel per unit, then one parcel would be charged. Does that answer?
Son 12 casas. ¿Tendría que pagar individualmente cada casa lo que están diciendo, la cantidad que están diciendo ustedes? Que no sé ni cuántas parcelas sean. Parcelas. Somos 12 unidades. Las 12 unidades tenemos que pagar separadamente una.
Do you receive a property tax bill? So your property tax bill is probably one unit, even though there's 12. So you will be responsible for one unit cost, not 12. You would be responsible for your one unit.
If you do have your ballot that will have the proposed amount, staff and our consultant here can sit down with you individually and kind of walk you through your particular situation. Next question.
Will this add more lighting to the city, or is this strictly only to maintain?
This would be strictly to maintain existing streetlights. The idea is maintaining those to make sure they're properly maintained for public safety. Essentially, a brightly lit street will helps deter any kind of criminal activity in most statistical senses. Any other questions? Well, we have some participants on Zoom,
Just
so we
for
try to
Zoom.
give them that courtesy.
I know back a couple years ago, they wanted us to vote to bring in the cannabis. And they said that cannabis was gonna relieve a lot of pressure from a lot of stuff. So why now we're getting to get our taxes increased? We haven't seen no money from the cannabis out there doing any projects or anything from that money. I mean, in the city, it's always your tax dollars. We don't see nothing saying your tax dollars at work on any of the props here or nothing. So why now? Where's all that money that supposedly the cannabis was gonna generate? I mean, where's it at? I mean, why isn't it taking over to pay this?
Good question. So specific to cannabis is back in 2018, 2019, we had a total of 21 licenses that were issued throughout the city. COVID happened, things kind of kind of paused for a while. Not many of them went online. Come to today. 5 of those 21 licenses are up and running. So the amounts that we were expecting back in those days are not there. The other part of your question is, repeat the last part of your question. Oh, yep.
And they're redoing the whole median. They're doing it against what you would call a desert, because it's all rock and with sand. I mean, there's not really that much maintenance. So that, I mean, why, if there's going to be a lot of maintenance on medians or what?
So, good example is over here to my left, so you're right, is a illustration of medians that will be coming in on one of our capital projects. So in the next fiscal year, we have 26 capital projects that will be coming into play or starting in some phase. As of today, we actually have one of our park projects, Luca Park. You actually see signage there that is having that being renovated so that the field is properly leveled for recreational use. You will start seeing in the next fiscal year, which is July through June, most of the 3 parks throughout the city being renovated. We'll be doing one at a time so that as one becomes offline, we can divert the activity to other parks. You will see Clara Extension being worked on fairly soon, and we will having a lot of those projects into there. In the lobby, as you walked in, we have concept art of what those projects will look like. They are going through various different design and proposal processes so that those grant dollars that we are receiving to fund those projects, not funded by general fund, these are funded by grant dollars the city has been awarded to fund those particular projects. So those will be those are multi-year projects. You'll be seeing a lot more momentum coming in the next year. We promise you that one. You're next, Susan.
since this is gonna come out of the property tax, the owners, right? I believe most of us would agree there should be some type of incentive for the property tax or for the owners in this case, because it's gonna benefit the whole city and we're the ones that are gonna take the hit. As city staff considered that, maybe some type of discount for some of the things that we already pay for, or even with code enforcement, maybe the discount in parking permits. I know that's a separate department, but maybe something like that. Is that something that can be negotiated with you guys?
The way this is currently structured, that's something that would likely not be negotiated because it is a community benefit. Safety and accurate street lighting from the street lights, and then beautification and whatnot from the medians that will be being put in place.
Okay, so how about just adding more lighting as well, though? Not just the maintaining of the lighting, but adding more lighting too, to the darker streets.
If you talk with staff, Daniela, if you want to raise your hand in the back, she will take your contact information. We will have our Public Works Department Director reach out to you and kind of walk you through those particular streets. Again, it's a different department. But if there is a issue with streetlights and lighting, we can have that area looked at by staff to kind of do an initial assessment. And if it needs to be surveyed, we can put that into our maintenance plan to review and see if additional lighting is necessary into there.
Well, I think everybody here would appreciate more lighting in the city. So maybe this is something that we can consider in this project. And if that's the case, it should be pushed back a little bit more so we could put it in this project.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely take that into consideration.
And last question, so what happens if we vote no?
So if you personally vote no, that is your right and your decision. It's based on the majority of the community. So as we explained earlier, if 51% say no, then everything remains status quo. Your property taxes would not be affected or changed as part of this process. Those will be funded using general fund dollars, and the unfortunate consequence is those dollars would not be able to go to other activities or services within the city. City staff and council will be assessing which ones that would be during the budget process, so that would be minimizing community impact. During the budget process, that would likely be discussed depending on the results of the outcome of this measure. Sorry about that. That will be discussed during the budget process. Depending on the results of this, the budget would be modified one way or another. And we'll go back to Susie.
Okay, so my question is, you say you mailed out approximately 3,000 ballots, but of those 3,000 ballots, is there a minimum that you expect to have returned? Or would this go through, let's say if you only received 2 ballots returned and both of them either voted no or yes, how would that work? Would that still mean that if it was voted yes, just based on those 2 ballots, that it would be approved and added to our tax bill?
So answering the first part of your question, there is no minimum during this process, and we have received about 200 so far. And they are currently sealed and locked away. We won't know anything until the council authorized the ballot processing process on the public hearing on April 15th.
And another question, if someone were to have misplaced their ballot, because like I mentioned before, they didn't know that this is crucial and important, how would they go about getting a duplicate copy of the ballot if it is possible?
It is possible. All they have to do is contact me, give me their address. We will have a replacement mailed to them.
Got my other question.
And we have 2 questions. on Zoom. The first one. Pues ¿dónde está dinero que recibió? Nunca ha hecho nada, pues usted quiere cuidarnos, la mantenga los propietarios. ¿Usted cada año reciben? So meaning, where is the money that the city received? And they want the property owners to maintain it? And where is the money that you would be receiving every year?
So currently, the amount that we receive in your current property taxes is maintained in a separate fund. It's not commingled in the general fund, but that one we receive is approximately $78,000. But the cost of maintenance, electricity, and whatnot, just for current, is about $200,000. That difference to kind of maintain a balance is essentially being transferred in from the general fund. If this passes, that process will continue. So only, and you'll see this openly and transparent on the budget and also on online community tools like Open Finance, is you'll be able to see the revenues coming in from that being segregated and can only be used on expenses relating to the lighting and landscaping for those districts.
And for the next question, what is the city going to do to protect the new initiatives from being vandalized? We need more code enforcement around the city. Adding more lights is not enough in around the neighborhood.
So public safety is one of our paramount foundations here within the city. The city has been working with law enforcement, and our code enforcement team have been going out to make sure that we help deter any sort of criminal activity within the community. The protections to help prevent these from being vandalized. So, like if we were to put out a art in public places, we put graffiti preventive coating on top of those particular items or any areas to help maintain those particular items within the city. Any graffiti that you notice in the area that is accessible to city staff, call it into City Hall, use the My Cudahy app, report it, and staff will respond to it and mitigate that graffiti. Any other questions in the audience?
Have you considered, instead of adding it to the property tax bill, but having a sales tax increase, maybe of 0.25%? What would that look like if it's possible?
So unfortunately, increasing sales tax is not possible. Under state legislation, there is a caps that are placed on cities throughout the state. And like most cities throughout California, we have reached that cap. So increasing tax in that particular one is not an option. Right now, I believe it is 10.25%. Any other question? Yes, sir.
Over the prior 5 years or so, you guys have been changing a lot of workers around here. So how can you promise that it's going to be maintained?
So we have to ensure that those particular assets are maintained for the longevity. We try to dedicate staff to performing that, but the electricity cost is done by California Edison. The maintenance is actually done by a third-party vendor that has expertise in that. Other services such as graffiti maintenance and whatnot is done by internal staff. But the maintenance of the streetlights itself is done by a third-party vendor that will respond depending on the extent of the issue. So if it's a general outage, that's usually taken care of within a day or two. If it is heavy vandalism that we have seen once or twice recently, someone essentially has ripped out wires and whatnot that has affected a whole section, That does take time because they have to go out and survey, order the parts, delivery, and installation. So every report that we get of outages, that is tracked, and it is forwarded to our third-party vendor and addressed in the most expedient way possible. That we do have a service agreement with them. That's their job, is to ensure that those are taken care of timely and appropriately. The medians will be taken, once put in place and whatnot, will be taken care of by city staff. That will be added to their maintenance schedules and be maintained. Because the idea of it is, once we put in these projects, the whole idea is to beautify our community, make Cudahy a vibrant, beautiful place. We want to maintain that. So our city staff, like they will be maintain the parks and whatnot, that'll just be added to the maintenance schedule.
So if the city gets a majority vote of yes, how much are you guys estimating to receive from the city, well, from the property owners? And what is this supposed to cost yearly?
So to answer that question, it will be estimated to bring in $241,000 from the current $78,000 that we presently receive. That is based on the engineering report and budget estimates to fully fund and hopefully sustain it with CPI over time, to essentially we don't have to come back to you again for any jump increases. It would just be CPI over time. We won't have to go back through this process again. It costs between $200,000 to $250,000 to maintain the streetlights and then the medians, depending on the final put-ins and water costs and whatnot, will be probably right around the 240 mark.
There's a ballot tally database that we create. So if a duplicate was to come in, my software system would catch it and flag it as a duplicate. And you guys are welcome to watch us while we do the tally.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I was reading here that it says that the ballots are gonna be weighted according to the proportional amount of each of the assessment of the affected property. So does that mean that each ballot doesn't have the same vote weight? And how do we know how much our vote actually will count as?
All the information is in the engineer's report. Well, the final engineer's report will have the assessment roll in there, and you'll see your dollar amount next to your parcel number. So that maximum amount is your weighted amount. So if your $58 and a commercial property is $200, then of course their weight is higher than yours, only because they're going to be paying more money. So it is a weighted ballot.
Yeah, well,
It's not a
that's.
one-to-one.
Yeah, see, that's where my issue is, because like, let's say somebody, because my bill, according to here, it's gonna be increased by $100, which like you just told the other person, theirs is gonna be $50 probably, right? So that means that my vote will count more than hers, and then somebody else's vote that is going to be charged more than me is gonna be counted twice as much as mine, 3 times as much as theirs. So that just seems unfair to be charged, to have this increase when it's not equally for all of us. And yet you're telling us that we have a right to vote, but it just doesn't seem like it's an equal vote.
We're at the mercy of Proposition 218, which ties everything to benefit. So if you have a larger commercial property that's 10 acres, you have to equate it to how many single-family residents can fit on that property. So that's what we have to follow. We have to follow the laws that are in place. So a smaller property is not in the same comparison. Like, single family, I totally agree. Most of the single family properties, especially for landscaping, will pay the same dollar amount. That's not any different. But for lighting, it depends on your front footage and how much you benefit. So if you have a front footage in your property that's 100 and somebody is only 25, then of course they benefit differently. So your 100-foot front footage of your property is going to benefit more than a 25 front foot property.
Can you explain what you mean by front footage? Because if it's what I think, I have a very small area, so.
Then it's your property address and it's the front of your property. So just the frontage of your property is counted.
But, okay, so I'm not clear on that. So do you mean by the front, do you mean from like the front wall of my house to the line, the property line of my property? Or do you mean the area that's across, like it's considered public right of way? So what do you mean?
Your property line,
So
so the
on-
front of your property line,
So from the wall of my house to,
the very, very front of your property. So the front
that's where I'm
property
not
line.
understanding.
I don't have a parcel map.
So the way to think about it is you think of the perimeter of your property, the fence line is essentially your property line. The small, the right of way or the small area that has a little bit of landscaping sidewalk and whatnot, that is the amount that is being equated in that part.
Okay, so it's from the public area
Correct.
to my property line
Yes,
that I'm being charged this amount.
correct.
It seems like it's pretty much the same on the commercial units versus the residential units, if that's the case. So I don't understand why my vote is going to be weighted less than a commercial building like that's, an apartment building that probably has 200 units on it or maybe 50 units on it.
When speaking towards lights, if that commercial property frontage is the same as yours, then they're going to pay the same as yours for lighting. For landscaping, it depends on how big the whole parcel is. So lighting is front footage. Landscaping is based on acres. And for a single family, we equate everybody to one. So you benefit by one. So every single family residential unit will pay the same dollar amount. But a commercial property would pay more because they're larger.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to have maybe more of a, maybe, meeting to actually understand this, because I have 3 zonings on my bill, so.
Yeah, we
and
can,
then it's just hard to understand how you're coming up with this. And then more so, what's even more frustrating is the fact that somebody else's ballot is gonna be counted, with a higher weight than mine. So that's my frustration.
so
It
the
just
first,
doesn't seem fair.
so the first part of it is, we can address your particular circumstance and we can go through yours individually and kind of walk you through it. The 218 process, which is a state law legislative requirement, was established back in in the early 90s that establishes very specific criteria and protocols that the city is mandated to follow during processes like this. So it's something that is almost out of our control, but we have to follow the state law. But we're more than happy to talk with you about your particular circumstance once the workshop is concluded. Any other last minute questions? All right. Anybody on Zoom that has any questions, use the hand raise feature or use the chat feature and we will get your questions in. All righty. Seeing none, we will go ahead and conclude the workshop. The staff and consultants will remain behind. City staff in the back. We have Raul Diaz, our Public Works Director. So if you have any streetlight questions, maintenance concerns, you can talk with him directly. Any questions on your particular parcel bill, anything like that, come talk to me and the consultants. We'd be more than happy to walk you through it. Anything budget related I can help you with. But again, we thank you very much for coming out and learning a little bit more about this process. And next steps from here, as you have not voted already, go ahead and cast your vote, turn it in before the public hearing on April 15th. Thank you very much.